The Charlotte Hornets are a part of more trade rumors. Who are the players that could be on their way out, according to some of these reports? And Brandon Miller falls off the rookie ladder. Why? Does it make sense? We discuss it today. Locked on Hornets.
We're Locked on Hornets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked on Hornets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. That's Doug Branson. You can find him on Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m., where we will be discussing Charlotte Hornets trade rumors and NFL coaching candidates that you could see as the next head coach of this Carolina Panthers team. That's what we're going to be going through. Back and forth, back and forth. How do the Hornets fix themselves? How do the Panthers fix themselves? How do the Hornets fix themselves? Panthers are doomed. That's what we talk about.
I saw that the Panthers interviewed someone named Frank Smith for their head coaching opening, and I can't think of a more sort of automated name than Frank Smith. A name that you make up when you're when you can't think of a name to make up. You go, Frank. I talked to Frank Smith.
Mm-hmm.
If the Hornets do fire Coach Clifford, I just ask that they hire someone with a name slightly more interesting than Frank Smith.
Does it have to be more interesting than Ben Johnson?
Ben Johnson's fine. I think is more interesting because Ben is short for Benjamin, and I think that's slightly more interesting than Frank Smith. Frank Smith will never win an NBA title. I'm just telling you that right now.
Yeah, maybe an NFL title, hopefully. That's the thing. I think there is beauty and simplicity in the NFL, not so much in the NBA. You got to have something spicy. Franklin, even if his name is Franklin, that spices it up. We don't need the L-I-N. We just need Frank Smith.
We need the W-I-N. I want to see the W-I-N right now.
They do. I'll take that. I would gladly hire a win to be a part of the Charlotte Hornets staff. And maybe one way they can do that is via trade. Trade rumors, hot stove. Heating up, not hot stove. That doesn't make sense. But trade rumors, they're heating up for the Charlotte Hornets and some of the other teams as the deadline approaches. Early February, Doug, less than a month away before we actually get to the trade deadline. I know you have this report here. Eric Pincus tells us who could possibly be on their way out of the Charlotte Hornets organization.
Eric Pincus from Bleacher Report writing about his latest trade rumors that he's hearing, the scuttlebutt. And he says that the Houston Rockets could target a backup big. He mentions Daniel Gafford from the Washington Wizards, but he goes and throws in the current Hornets starting center with Mark Williams out. That's Nick Richards could be the target for Houston. He also writes that the Charlotte Hornets are expected to make just about anyone available, bar LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Mark Williams. Does not include NSJ on that list, Walker. So we can take these one at a time. What do you think about Houston targeting Nick Richards? What do you think the Hornets could bring back? What do you think about the idea of trading Nick Richards? Just give me all you got, Walker, on Nick Richards.
If you trade Nick Richards right now, or if you traded him within the next couple of weeks, and Mark Williams, let's just say for this specific case, Mark Williams wasn't available, then the guy that we talked about yesterday, who we weren't piling on, we promise we weren't piling on, Nathan Mensah will be your starting center, the only traditional starting center, or center for that matter, that you have on the roster. You're looking at a lot of small ball 5 PJ and Nathan Mensah, and then you can't go anywhere else. Unless James Najee decides that he's coming over right here and now, and I would be all the way here for it. But I don't expect that to happen this season. So
we need to do flight tracking. See if there are any flights coming from Barcelona to Charlotte.
I would get excited if I saw one. So it's going to be tough to be able to trade any center. Mark Williams not really on the table like that. But we talked about Nick Richards' contract, Doug, being valuable because of this, because it could be a sweetener to add to a different deal or whether it be a very tradable contract just by itself. Maybe they could do it. Also, if you're looking at the return, I don't know. We've traded a center before. In fact, we did it last year when the Charlotte Hornets traded Mason Plumlee. They only got a second-round pick, and we were all happy about that. Older player, you could probably only get a second-round pick in return as the most value in return. Nick Richards, what would you be looking for here, Doug? To make it worth it, would it be a highly protected first? You're not even like the Rockets wouldn't do that. So you're talking about 2 seconds, right? Yeah. I mean, that I would be looking for 2 second-round picks. That feels like the medium between there's no way logically that they would be giving up a first-round pick. A player, they're not going to give us a backup center. We desperately need one too. So I think 2 second-round picks as the asking price makes the most sense to me. And then even if you settle on a second-round pick or don't trade them, those are the options.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the contracts that you would have to make work, unless they have Houston may have a trade exception that I don't know about that would allow them just to take the salary back and send picks. But they have a lot of salaries that are within the Nick Richards range, which is $5 million a year. But it's a lot of young players that they're super invested in, like Tari Eason and Cam Whitmore, that I don't think they're going to be willing to part with. I mean, if they were willing to part with Tari Eason, I'd totally be. I'd be super excited about that. But I just don't think
any of those guys. Yeah, that's
a reality for them now. Jock Landale. I always want to call him Londale, but it's Landale.
Because you want to go Jack Londale, right? But it's Jock Landale.
Yeah. So he's making $8 million a year. The problem is he's making $8 million a year until like 2027. This is like the first year of a 4-year contract. And I don't expect, but he would be another center option for them. But then you're just swapping, I think, just backup centers, which doesn't make much sense. So I think the deal here is probably Nick Richards and something for something, but ultimately you're trying to get 2 second-round picks. But here's the thing. Contrary to popular belief within the confines of 333 Trade Street, you do need to have a couple of centers on your roster that are like NBA level in order to compete. And so if they do trade Nick Richards and don't come back with something that they can play with, then I think that's a strong indication that, next season after that, could be in serious rebuild mode.
Yeah, for sure. Here's one player I'm thinking about that you could bring back in return that I'd be happy with. Jayshawn Tate would make some sense, just as somebody that could come in and defend. He's got a good field goal percentage. He doesn't shoot extremely well from three, but Jayshawn Tate was somebody that was a part of the all-rookie squad a few years back. His minutes have gone down every year. The last 3 games, he's played 19, 9, and 12. I think he might be too much a part of their rotation, but like that would be the player that I would go after, making a little over $6 million, something like that. So if you got Jayshawn Tate and a second, if that's something they would do, right? Yeah. Or you just go straight up swap. I don't know how much they value him, but he is playing not as much, but still a decent amount. So that would be another idea that I would throw out there.
I think that makes a lot of sense because Tate was probably a victim of the Houston Rockets doing what we've wanted the Charlotte Hornets to do for a few seasons now, which is actually get out there and spend some money and go bring some veteran players to compete in the conference. They went out and got Fred VanVleet. They went out and got Dylan Brooks. And so the younger players that were getting a ton of minutes in their rotation suddenly a few of them found themselves on the outside looking in. And so, Tate makes a lot more sense because his deal in 2024-25, I think, is a team option. Like there's some non-guaranteed portion of that. And so that's one that you look.
It's team option next year at over $7 million.
So that's perfect, right? Because then you're not even worried about the $5 million that you would have had to pay. Yeah, this is all about book cleaning. I think that's what Hornets fans should be prepared for this coming trade season. Don't be prepared for moves that indicate, oh, this team is like, wants to get out of the basement. They want to get out quickly. I think you're going to see a lot of moves like we saw with Washington and Detroit, where you have to really like look closely to understand the motivations. They're going to be salary cap motivations. They're going to be book clearing motivations as they prepare to rethink this entire roster and break it down.
Yeah, the fact that Nick Richards is now on that's the thing. Before we end, do you just not trade him to have some backup big on your team for the rest of this season? Because it's going to get really bad if you trade him and you don't have any other big man in return. I know we could go with it's already bad, Walker. Like, it can't get any worse, right? Actually, yeah, I guess it could. I know I asked that question a lot, but it could. If you don't have Nick Richards and you don't have Mark Williams available and it's only Mensah, hey, that's tough. Then how much does that affect everybody else that you hope to see succeed on this team for the second half of the year? So is it worth it going after Tate or 2 second-round picks just to have everybody, play with PJ and Mensah at the starting center spots until Mark Williams comes back? And how much can you trust Mark Williams with a back injury right now? Maybe you just don't trade him. Maybe sometimes that's the best idea.
Is Boban technically with the Rockets? I see him listed here on the cap sheet, but I'm not sure he's a member of the Rockets. But
I'll take Boban.
Yeah, you bring back Boban. That would be interesting. Here's the thing: could you trade for and include in the trade a pair of platform shoes and just throw those on Brandon Miller? Let's see if we can get him back on the rookie ladder if he's getting some center minutes.
or the Rockets, maybe they have a space chute where you can just propel yourself up to the rim and protect it. Maybe
you never know.
The Rockets for a reason. All right,
yeah, you got to get in there and negotiate. Mitch, make the call.
I like that segment. That was good analysis at the very end. Let's move on to the second segment. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. One guy that is absolutely not on the trade market, it is Brandon Miller, but he falls off the rookie ladder. Does it make sense? We'll talk about that in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, even more than that. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Doug, we have the NBA.com rookie ladder and we have the ESPN rookie ladder. Now, I believe that the NBA.com rookie ladder, they update that like every week with not a whole lot of analysis behind it. They just basically maybe have one sentence on each player, why they moved up and down that week, or maybe it's that month or whatever, right? I know Sam Farber, big ol' NBA rookie ladder guy, NBA.com rookie ladder guy. ESPN, they did their own version of the rookie ladder. Mm-hmm. Brandon Miller, nowhere to be found.
What?
Number 2 overall pick, nowhere to be found. Some of the guys that were on this list include Scoot Henderson, who, look, we have quite the history with Scoot.
Interesting.
Scoot's been, don't you do that. No, look, even me, I wanted Scoot Henderson too, but there's no way Scoot at this point should be ahead of Brandon Miller. You stop. Don't do it.
You know what? I will do it. You know what? Actually, I will do it. I would like, there's been a lot of talk on this show about apologies and who should be giving apologies. I would like to demand an apology from some of these commenters out there that were, I think, a little too quick to write the story on one Scoot Henderson. So you all can just issue those apologies, right? You just click the little comment button on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on podcast, just jump on YouTube, click the little comment button and put in there, "I'm sorry, Doug." And that's all you have to do.
You're maniacal is
Hit
what
submit.
You are. That's Scoot Henderson is above him on the rookie ladder. Also Jordan Hawkins, Craig Porter Jr., Asar Thompson, Trace Jackson Davis. So
pretty sure I saw a Boozer kid on there too.
I think I saw him. That's the 2026 ladder. Yeah. What do you make of Brandon Miller not being on this list?
Well, what you have to understand is that all of these rookie ladders are very much what have you done for me lately. They are not evaluations of the season as a whole. That's the whole idea behind. It's not an MVP race. It's a ladder. You climb up sometimes you're climbing up. I don't know if you've ever dealt with many ladders before, but you climb up the ladder.
No, I have. I just got on one last week, in fact, to hang a birdhouse. It was scary.
Oh,
we got
wow.
up there pretty high. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Yeah. How high?
Owl house. Hoping to get one. Cross our fingers. Go on,
so anyway, you climb up a ladder and you climb down a ladder, okay? And you know, sometimes you're at the middle of the ladder, sometimes you're all the way at the bottom, sometimes you're at the top. Right now, Brandon Miller, because he had the hip flu, and then has luckily avoided an actual hip injury here and has the lower back contusion. He's missed some time, and even when he was back, when he came back probably too early from whatever sickness he was dealing with, he wasn't playing very well. And overall, I think this season, he's probably been given too many minutes too early for a rookie, and he's been given too much responsibility. And so that has led to some, like when you look at the numbers, some inefficiencies that are just not present in some of the other guys, like Hawkins. I mean, I'm not even, look, Chet Holmgren, Victor Wembanyama, they are in a universe by themselves. Let's just kind of move those guys. They're all the way off the ladder. They're in space. But, you know, when you're talking about the other guys, Hawkins, Porter, and Hawkins, and Trace, you know, these are guys that don't have the same kind of shot responsibilities that Brandon Miller has been forced upon Brandon Miller because of the injuries, and so the numbers don't look great.
No, they don't. Not in the last month. And just so we're clear, right, you were trying to explain exactly how the ladder works, and this is the exact write-up on it. We're at the midpoint of the NBA season. Typically, when we hear about players starting to hit the fabled rookie wall, however, the starts at the top of this rookie year's class show no signs of doing so. The number 1 pick in Wemby, Holmgren, they're up at the top. And so all season, Bobby Marks, Kevin Pelton, they'll be checking in on first-year players, including everyone at the top who is eligible for Rookie of the Year, ranking the top 10. And so it's basically not as clear as what you were saying, Doug. And so that's why I think people are getting frustrated with, wait, this does feel like a top 10 all year measure instead of just what's been happening lately. And here's how they put Brandon Miller outside of that top 10 list. Here they say since December 17th, we're almost there at a month. I mean, we're right there at a month. Brandon Miller is averaging 1.8 free throws per game. That's 15th amongst all rookies, and 2.4 per 36 minutes. In the past month, Miller ranked outside of the top 30 among all rookies in effective field goal percentage at 45%. Since December 15th, right at a month too, Miller shot 36% on layups, dunks, and floaters, the second worst during that span among players with at least 50 attempts. So, Doug, I think when you're battling ankle injuries like he has, like not anything that holds him out to the point where it holds LaMelo, much more serious ankle injury LaMelo suffers.
Tweaks.
But both tweaks to both ankles, and you're dealing with a sickness too. I do think that is going to make what is already a weakness a much more glaring weakness, which is finishing inside. This was the thing that was criticized about him by you, me, and others who weren't high on him. That was the main criticism, him coming into the NBA. He's still shooting well on catch and shoot opportunities. Maybe the 3-point percentage is down as a whole from what it was earlier, but it's the inside game that when you're not feeling great, when you're not 100% and the players aren't necessarily that great around you, LaMelo just coming back, and you're still out when LaMelo comes back, then people are not going to make your weaknesses all that better. And that's how I think you see the steep decline in something that was already not his strong suit coming into the league.
Yeah, his weaknesses have been exposed by all of the responsibility that he's had on the offensive end. He's been asked to create for himself in situations that he's not particularly ready to create for himself. There is an alternate universe where the Hornets were, you know, some form of healthy relative to the rest of the NBA and not this apocalyptic injury list that they're constantly confronted with. And in that universe, that we talked about, I think, in the preseason. Sort of the ideal situation for Brandon Miller is that he's coming off the bench in a significant bench role, but that he was asked to do things that generally matched what Miles Bridges was asked to do in his first year, which is stand in the corner and, let some offense develop around you, be open, hit shots, and occasionally we'll ask you to create as the season goes on, and you'll expand your role sort of naturally in that way. Well, that hasn't happened. And so, yes, his weaknesses are going to be exposed in a particular way. Here's the good news. The good news is that I think what we've seen is Brandon Miller quickly learns from his mistakes, and he has a supreme confidence such that I'm not concerned at all that the mistakes that he's making right now, the inefficiencies that we're seeing, are somehow going to damage him in the long term. I think he's just going to soak all of this up like a sponge, take it into the offseason, and we're going to see a brand new Brandon Miller in his second year. And I think we're going to see a brand new Brandon Miller in his third year. He is going to make leaps every single year, and it's going to be really exciting to watch. So don't be concerned with ladders. Don't be concerned with rookie MVP races. I don't think either of you or me thought that Brandon Miller was going to shock the world as one of the better rookies. I'll speak for myself. I always saw him as someone that was going to shoot up in second, third, fourth year, and everybody was going to be like, wow, I had written this guy off in his rookie season, and all of a sudden, he's developed. That felt like his trajectory more so than make a big splash in year one.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I thought he would help pretty quickly. I thought just with his skill set and that shooting at his size, I didn't think he was going to shoot at 40%. Like, he was knocking down everything from mid-range and deep. Like that's something I didn't see coming right away. And that's why the lack of talent around him has really exposed him too. It would expose anybody. It would even make it harder, right? Not even expose means, he's been hiding something this entire time. It would just be harder for any rookie to come in and play with this lack of talent. I did think, though, as we gave some pre-draft analysis, we said, Brandon, there's no way he fails, right? Like, it was all about the whole upside. What are going to be mistakes, as you say, and what are going to continue to be limitations? And we'll figure that out as his career goes on. But Brandon has been one of the, if we were to do an overall evaluation based on game one to where we are now, Brandon Miller would be top 5 rookie. I would think so, with it not thinking at the top of my head, certainly outside of Chet and Wemby, but top 5 rookie if you were to measure the entire season. Any last thoughts, or do you want to move on?
Every single time Brandon Miller drives inside and 3 guys converge on him and he loses the basketball, that's an opportunity for him to go back and look at the tape and understand what went wrong on that possession. And again, everything that I've heard about him and everything that I've seen where he can make adjustments in game. Like, he can make some mistakes in the first half, and then in the second half you see, he tried that same thing again and did something different. Like, all of that leads me to believe that there's nothing wrong with Brandon Miller. There have been guys where they've made mistakes, rookies made mistakes in the past, and I go, man, I don't know. It just seems like this mistake keeps getting made over and over. I'm not seeing the learning. I'm not seeing the progression there. That's not at all happening with Brandon Miller. I'm not concerned about him at all right now.
Yeah. Oh no, the fourth quarter amnesia is.
But I would like my apology. So make sure you get that in early. Don't forget. Put a reminder in your phone. I'm sorry, Doug, about the Scoot hate.
Yeah,
he's
and when
cooking
you do that,
right now.
Just letting you know, when you do that, listeners, I'll apologize to you right after your apology. So just want to know that. One more segment to go. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Come on, man.
The Hornets play the Pelicans tonight. They lost badly the first time. And here we are talking more Mensa. This was Mensa's debut earlier in the season, Doug. So now he gets a chance to have revenge on Jonas Valanciunas. How's it going to go? We'll talk about it in the last segment coming up soon. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. What are some things that you want to keep the same about yourself or your life in 2024? Where are you already crushing it? And then you can think maybe opposite of new year, new me. Around New Year's, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we're already doing right. Maybe you finally organized one part of your space and you want to tackle another, or maybe you're taking your supplements every morning and now you want to actually eat breakfast too. Therapy helps you find your strengths so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire. You can get matched with a licensed therapist, and then you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL regular season, it's done. We are now on to the divisional round and the NFL playoffs, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet, and that's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use. There are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. That's the best way to find popular parlays. You can even do more than that, like we do when we go and transition into a different league, and we bet the buzz sometimes. We don't do it consistently. That's not what we do, but we do it sometimes. And if we were to bet on the line today, Doug, what is the line? What's the line for the Hornets-Pelicans contest?
The Hornets are 11.5-point underdogs. Now,
Okay.
what Vegas may not know is that the Charlotte Hornets just had a players-only meeting. Now, I don't know how much that would affect the spread or not, but if Vegas doesn't know that, if they haven't been paying attention to Terry Rozier saying they had a players-only meeting, there could be an opportunity. I'll give you a couple of other what do you call them? Props, yeah. 6+ made threes, LaMelo Ball, plus 600. I like that. I think LaMelo's going to come out shooting a lot in this game. Record a triple-double. LaMelo Ball's at plus 2,700. The other player that they have is C.J. McCollum at plus 8,500. I would not take that. But I think LaMelo Ball, I'm sniffing here for a big game. Just came off a 21-10. I think he could make it a triple-double here against the New Orleans Pelicans.
All right, go to FanDuel. Vegas not accounting for the Charlotte Hornets POM. They don't account for that, so make sure you go there. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Pelicans preview coming up next. Locked On Hornets. So they've had a little bit of a rest here, Doug. The Hornets have. They played the Spurs on Friday, then they lost to the Heat on Sunday. So they've had a couple of days of rest before they hit the road once more and take on the New Orleans Pelicans. They lost the last time. As you might imagine, it wasn't pretty for the Charlotte Hornets in that game. We saw Valanciunas take advantage of Mensa's first game ever. That's correct. They won 112-107, so it's not like they won by a huge margin of victory.
No.
And it was the second quarter that separated them just a little bit, but Charlotte actually came out in the second half and put it on them, scoring 37 points. Usually the third quarter, that's the Achilles heel of an already weak Charlotte Hornets team. What do you expect to see tonight?
No, it was a close game in that first contest, surprisingly so, although that was December 15th, and in the middle of December was a period, beginning of December, middle of December, they had lost LaMelo in that late November period, and the Hornets sort of came together and really focused on the defensive end of the floor through most of the month of December, and that's where you thought, okay, well, maybe they can survive, and then they let the leash up on that, but that was part of that New Orleans game was part of that, where they were playing aggressive defense. I think they had 6 or 7 steals in that game. Terry Rozier had 30+ points and I think 3 steals in that game. So that they've got to refine that. This you mentioned that they're on 2 days rest, but I think that's less important for the physical aspect of the rest and more important for the mental aspect of the rest. The players only meeting, they've got to reset. They've got to, all right, they're getting some players back. Everybody's got to refigure out their role and refigure out what this team has got to focus on. It's got to start on the defensive end of the floor, and it's got to be about guarding without fouling, because New Orleans as an offense is so reliant on Zion getting to the rim and getting fouled, on Valanciunas getting fouled, on McCollum getting contact so he can get easy points in the line. They are 7th in the NBA according to cleaning the glass and free throw rate. The Hornets defense 23rd in the NBA at allowing teams to get to the free throw line. And I'm sure if you looked over the past couple of games, it's even worse than that. They are addicted to fouling, and a large part of that, I think, is not having Mark Williams, depending on Mensa's inexperience and Nick Richards having to overcome some things, will hurt them. But look, this is going to be a tough game because New Orleans is on a heater right now. They're one of the hottest teams in the NBA. But we'll see if 2 days rest is enough for the Hornets to kind of slow them down a little bit.
No, you're right. If you remember back in the middle of December, the first time these teams played, Pelicans were hovering around 500. In fact, they were 13-11 coming into that game. That win got them to 14-11. Now they're 24-17 on the season. And the recent losses they've suffered, they actually are coming off of a loss on the road. They're on a pretty long road trip coming off of it, going back home for the first time in 5 games. Their most recent contest was against Dallas, back-to-back. They suffered a 5-point loss. They beat them the first time. The other losses here recently, Doug, it's against Denver on the road, and it's against the Clippers, who have been on more of a heater than what the Pelicans have been. Bottom line, this is a good basketball team. They figured something out with the way they've been playing the last month, really getting started in that winning streak that they had that included a Hornets victory. I'd go to immediately what you mentioned, Doug, Zion Williamson getting to the basket. But also, the Pelicans are just a good driving team in general. Zion Williamson is the head of that snake. But Brandon Ingram's good too, even if he doesn't get to the rim all the time. He can, do the mid-range thing that we've become accustomed to a different Brandon doing here. But Brandon Ingram is good at the mid-range shot. But both of those guys are very efficient driving to the basket. They get a lot of their points that way. They're one of the top teams in attempts driving, points percentage coming from them. You see them get a lot of their points that way. And so you have to worry about the point of attack defense. They've been struggling to stop ball all year long. And then that's when you have to have Nick Richards really step up. Nick Richards, it's been rough go for him. If Nick Richards can step up and be that back line, and if we can, his
prize will be getting traded to Houston.
That's right. That'll be his prize. It has to be okay. You have a couple of things to make up for, right? It's tough to stay in front of Zion. You're not going to be able to do that. I get it. Can you stay in front of everyone else? So stay in front of guys, and if they beat you, can Nick Richards recover enough, and then you rotate? How you need to. It's tough, but that's what the task is if you want to try to stop this Pelicans team.
Well, this would be a great game to have Gordon Hayward back. I think he was a big part in that first game of slowing down Brandon Ingram, of keeping him from just going off for 40+. You're not going to have him back. He is still listed as out, along with Mark Williams. But 2 guys did jump up into the questionable range. One of them, Brandon Miller, with his low back injury, and Frank Ntilikina listed as questionable. And here's Steve Clifford on Frank Ntilikina to Rod Boone of the Charlotte Observer, talking about Ntilikina being out since breaking that tibia in preseason. He said, quote, "It's actually been a pretty significant hit for our team. I don't know if people know he can guard anybody like Melo. There aren't many guys who can guard Melo. Frank can make it hard on Melo. He's a great individual defender, and a terrific pick and roll defender, and there's not many guys like that. So if they get Frank Ntilikina back, it could be interesting because, look, you need to see some progress on the defensive end. If you're looking for things to watch in this game, because honestly, I'll set the expectation for you. The Hornets, I would love to see the Hornets not get smoked in this game. There were some games when they were still at the beginning of this losing streak where they've lost 15 of 16 or 14 of 15. At the beginning of that streak, they were losing games where they were competitive throughout the game, but never a threat to beat the team. They would sort of hover at 4 or 5 points down. That's what I want to see the Hornets get back to. That's where I'm setting the expectation. I'm not even setting it at get a win. I'm setting it at can you not get completely run out of the gym, because that's what the Hornets have been facing lately, and that's what led to this players-only meeting. That's the expectation, and I think getting back in transition, New Orleans is not a team that loves to attack you in transition. And so if New Orleans does that, if they're able to do that, if the Hornets allow them to do that, then you start to say, okay, there are some serious issues. I would love to see the Hornets make smart decisions at the rim, hit a few more layup opportunities when they're there, because Valanciunas is going to make it very difficult to get those opportunities. But when you get them, you have to make them, and you have to kick that ball out and knock down some three-point shots. That's why I was serious about the LaMelo Ball stuff. I think this could be a big game for him because he is going to have to knock down shots, and I think he knows that, and I think he's going to attempt a lot of threes in this game.
All right, so yeah, if defense and all that matters, especially with the wings, right? You're not necessarily looking at the guards attacking as much because CJ is the pop guy. But if you're looking at guys that are driving, Cody Martin not on the injury report, that's a good sign because now any day that Cody Martin is not on the injury report is a win for both Cody and the Charlotte Hornets. We do give thanks to the gods that have allowed us to have one thing after coming back from injury. And so it does look like he'll suit up tonight, but also big game for him. And people have kind of scoffed, and I was one of these people, to be honest with you, that scoffed at the idea that Frank was going to help this team a ton this year. I thought he would help defensively a little bit. I did not expect him to just replace what DSJ was going to do. To be fair, the argument against that is, well, you didn't expect DSJ to do what he did last year. That's fair enough. I do think, having watched this team as much as we have, Doug, and seeing the lack of defense, especially where once you get beat initially, there's no chance that they're coming back from it, right? The only chance that you have is Mark Williams, who I think at least deters some of the drivers from just getting easy buckets at the rim. At least Mark Williams can be in their brain. Look, the dude's smart and he's bigger than everyone else. He's got a longer wingspan that has to count for something. But now that you don't have Mark, now you have to rely on Nick Richards making the right read, and that's a little iffy. So if Frank Ntilikina was there to clean up the mistakes initially, it gives your team a shot. Like, I actually do think Steve Clifford is right in how he's been a big miss. No, I'm not trying to say they would have won 15 or 20 games. I am trying to tell you that that bar you're setting, we're asking to lose, yet just lose by single digits. That bar, maybe we have a lot. Maybe we have 15 more of those. Maybe, like, not that many. You get the idea. I do agree with Steve that it might be a bigger miss than what we've given it credit for all season long. We haven't seen him, not one game. All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. Go check out Doug's Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'll be on WFNZ today, like every weekday, from 12 to 3 p.m. Sports Radio 92.7 FM. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow to recap the Pelicans game. And real quickly, Doug, I invite everybody that listens to the podcast to head to Graham Street Pub tonight.
Oh, wow.
WFNZ doing a Hornets watch party. Going to be me, going to be Wes Bryant, my co-host, who also provided coverage last year on Bally's, doing the halftime show alongside Ashley Shamity. So Wes Bryant, Walker Mail, even Josh Fitty Marlowe, our wily producer. We're all going to be out there at Graham Street Pub.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You could,
cool.
In fact, if you want to deliver, now I'm not in Charlotte, but if you want to deliver your apology personally, you can do it to Walker. Walker can, by proxy, deliver it to me. I think I've blocked most of the people that need to give me an apology. I think I've blocked most of them on Twitter, so they can't do it there. But they can do it on YouTube, or they can deliver it to you personally at Graham Street Pub.
All right, I regret all of that. Thanks for making us your first listen, and we'll be back with you tomorrow.